Good morning and welcome everyone to today's event. Thank you so much for joining us today. This event is hosted and organized by Silent Scream Foundation, which is a non-profit organization in Ghana that works on issues involving mental health care access, awareness, and the stigmatization of mental health issues. You can find more information about the organization on our website. You can also Google Silent Scream Foundation to find out the channels through which you can contact us. We'll provide all of these details at the end of the talk as well. Today's event is a mental health awareness training on the theme Before Suicide. It's the second of its kind. We had a similar event last month talking about managing depression, and the recording for that is on our YouTube channel. We'll also provide the details for that at the end of the talk, so you can go and access that if you missed it. We're joined today by Anne Mensah Kufuor, who is the principal clinical psychologist of the Greater Accra Regional Hospital. She has a wealth of experience in the field, and we are very grateful to have her join us today. Kindly note that today's session will be recorded so that it can be revisited by participants in the future and also made available to those who can join us today. And please remember to keep your during the talk to avoid interruption so that we can hear Madam Anne clearly. Kindly take note of all questions that will come up while she's presenting so that you can type them in the chat afterwards, and then we'll collate them and make them available to her so that she can answer. Thank you. I hope we have an enjoyable and informative meeting. Madam Anne, please, you can start.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam Moderator. Today's topic is before suicide, and we would like to know why. Last week, Saturday, we celebrated World Suicide Day. That was the 10th of September, 2022. And the theme for the celebration was a renewed worldwide commitment to prevent suicides, creating hope through action. So this is one of the reasons why we are talking about suicide this month. Our outline for the presentation is as follows. Reason for talking about suicide, risk factors, signs of suicidal behavior, suicide prevention, ways to prevent suicide, and then we'll talk a little bit about suicide, those who survive suicide or suicide survivors. Okay, so we have some definitions. Suicide is a death caused by injuring oneself with the intent to die. And suicide attempt is when someone harms himself or herself with an intention to end their life, but they do not die as a result of their actions. Now, let's look at certain myths about suicide and then what is true about suicide. So the first one says that talking about suicide or asking someone if he or she is thinking about suicide will put ideas in his or her mind. So people don't usually want to talk about it. But then the fact is that discussing the problem openly shows the person with suicidal thoughts that someone cares and wants to help. And the other one is if a person is please hold on. The other one is if a person If a person is determined to kill him or herself, there's nothing that you can do to stop that person. But then the fact is that people tend to waver when they want to commit suicide.
Your morning show 2 days ago.
And whatever you do, whatever intervention you put in can help prevent the person from committing suicide. I'm having issues with my screen. Okay. And then the other one too says that suicide happens without warning. But then research shows that 75% of people who attempt or commit suicide have shown some signs, some warning signs, or some signs that they want to commit suicide. The last one says people who die by suicide are people who are unwilling to seek help. And research shows that more than 50% seek medical help from at least 6 months before the act. And then other people also think that, please, can we stop sending the messages so that it doesn't interfere? Suicide happens, anyone who tries to commit or kill himself must be crazy. And the fact says that most people who try to commit suicide or who try to die by suicide are not psychotic. Suicide is a global phenomenon and which spans across all the lifespan and is the second leading cause of death among 15 to 29-year-olds. Is the fourth cause of death among 15 to 19-year-olds, according to the WHO. And it happens most of the time in the low income, 80% of it happens within the low and middle income countries. There's an attempted suicide every 40 seconds. And for each attempted suicide, there's a completed suicide every 40 seconds. And for each completed suicide, there are 20 attempted suicides going on. And women attempt suicide, but men tend to complete it. There are more statistics. 5 people commit suicide daily. About 1,500 suicide cases are reported annually. And for each case that are reported, there are 4 unreported cases. Nigeria has the highest suicide rate in Africa. And the suicide rates in Africa are about 11.2 per 1,000 people. And then 1 in 100 deaths is by suicide. There are more facts about teenagers. If you want more information, I'll talk about it in the question and answer time. So what causes suicide, or what are the risk factors? Within adolescents, it's said that there are biological causes, psychological causes, developmental causes, psychiatric causes, social causes, cultural and family environmental causes. Some of the examples are the loss of a loved one to death, divorce, deployment, deportation, or incarceration in the prisons. There could be bullying, whether in person or online. It could be as a result of racism, discrimination, and other related inequalities. There was someone who was saying that the mother was not, there are issues with inequalities at home and blah, blah, blah. So there are things like that. There's a family history of suicide or mental health difficulties, stigma about mental health or suicide, easy access to guns or other life-threatening tools or substances, example, pesticides, poison, and all those other things. witnessing or suffering violence or domestic abuse in the home, at work, anywhere, financial instability that causes worry and insecurity. So these teenagers think about it when they realize that there's financial instability within the home. It affects them. They think about it, and especially when they have difficulties in life as a result of that, it can lead them, it can push them to try to die by suicide. And then suicide in their school or friend group. And also there's also this trend whereby if there's any popular person who dies by suicide, or any musician, popular musician that they like, who dies by suicide, they can also it can trigger a lot of people also dying by suicide. There are also other risk factors. We are looking at the individual level, previous suicide attempts or self-harm, major physical illness. If you have a problem, physical illness with stroke or diabetes or sickle cell, or any of these illnesses that can be debilitating, it can push someone to die by suicide. Mental health disorders like mood disorders, personality disorders, psychotic or obsessive compulsive disorders can also push someone to die by suicide. History of trauma and abuse, I've already said that in the adolescents. Precipitating or triggering events leading to humiliation, shame, or despair. So there's been examples of people who maybe at work, he's a top-ranking person, and then he's found out for doing something wrong, and is published or publicized, and he feels, when it's publicized, the person feels a lot of shame, and as a result of that, they try to die by suicide. In Japan, shame, a lot of shame pushes people to die by suicide because they are sensitive to that. And then also family history of suicide. Someone who's died in the family by suicide would also push someone to also. And then when it comes to the social and environmental level, you look at chaotic family history, lack of social support, or increase in isolation. It's been said that those who try to commit, die by suicide, when they feel a loss of belonging, so that pushes them. So that fact that they lose their sense of belonging makes them feel isolated, and makes them feel that, well, if they leave this world, no one is going to care. So it pushes them to die by suicide, or try to attempt suicide. And then easy access or familiarity with lethal weapons. So especially those with in the police service, in the army, they deal with firearms, guns, and all that. So it's easy for them to use that as a mode of dying by suicide. Or if the person has an easy access to it, the person can also use that alternative. Local clusters of suicide, I've mentioned it. Media exposure, the way the media depicts suicidal cases, people who died by suicide, if they show them hanging and all that, or showing them the way they died, or telling the way they died and everything, it can push people to also do same. Legal difficulties, contact with law enforcement and incarceration, people in prison, when they realize that they are there for life and all that, they feel like their world is over, and so they try to kill themselves or try to end their life by dying by suicide. Yeah, so these things can happen, and some cultural and religious beliefs. So some people in certain sects could be influenced to die by suicide by their leaders, or whoever who brainwashed them into doing that. So that can also happen. what are the signs that show that someone wants to die by suicide? They usually try to get their affairs in order, so they put their things in order. If there's a will, they put it together. They make sure that their possessions and everything is in order. They give away their personal possessions to people. Oh, you take this. Oh, yeah, I just want to distribute my possessions because people need it and all that. They also try to seek out or obtain a weapon, or they write a suicide note. So when people write suicide notes, or you realize that they're trying to look for weapons, be careful. Just know that they are trying to end their life. Preoccupation with or talking about death or suicide. So even right now on the media, social media, they can be talking about death. Some of their tweets or some of their things they say, their status could show that this person wants to or is trying to die by suicide. So we should look out for such things. Withdrawing from family and friends. If the person is a social person and the person suddenly withdraws from family and friends, is something that you should pay attention to. Extreme mood swings, you're happy, you're sad, angry, and all that, that can push the person. That shows that that person might be interested in ending his or her life. Saying goodbye to family and friends, losing interest in the activities that they usually engaged in. So activities that usually made them happy or they're interested in, you realize that suddenly they withdraw from it, they are no longer interested, you push them into it, but you lead them into it or invite them and they don't want to come going out, they don't want to go out anymore and all that. That could be a sign. Saying that they're bedding. So in their utterances, they can say certain things like that. Sudden happiness after a period of depression or a sudden sense of calm. That is after they've been sad for a while and out of the blue, they suddenly are okay, everything is fine, and they've not sought help and all that. But then everything is fine and they're happy and they're laughing. It shows that it means that they've come to the realization, they've come to the conclusion that this is the path I want to take. So they've suddenly found an answer to whatever they were going through, the depression they were going through. So they are happy about it, or they feel more calm because now everything is sorted out. So you should watch out for that. Self-loathing, self-hatred, they hate themselves. All these things could lead to can push someone to try to die by suicide. Hopelessness. Signs of depression, the hopelessness, worthlessness, could also lead to dying by suicide. And then self-destructive behavior, saying that I'm not good enough, I'm all that, and then also trying to self-harm, cutting themselves and all that, their wrists and all that, that could also indicate that the person might want to die by suicide. So there are various ways by which they do that. Some try to use ropes to hang themselves. They use insecticides, poison, guns, prescription drugs, knives. So all these things are things that you should know, so that you can know how to help someone. How do you prevent suicide? You should know the signs.
Warning in progress.
You should know the signs. You should know the signs of, as I've already discussed earlier, told you earlier, you should know the signs, keep them in mind. And then don't discount the feelings of the people who are depressed or having mental challenges or who have suicidal thoughts. Look at suicide as a cry for help and try to help them. They really don't, as we've said about the facts, they really don't want to die, but they just want to end the pain or the suffering that they are going through or the predicament that they are in. Be a good listener. All they need is for you to listen. They don't want you to pass judgments. It's not now that you're going to tell them that there's a better life and all that. Just listen to them. They just want you to listen to whatever they have to say. And that sometimes help them rethink or come to a solution whilst talking to you. And encourage them to seek help for their depression, professional help for their depression. We have clinical psychologists, we have psychiatrists, and then so they could also go to the hospital for help. Don't be afraid to ask about their suicidal feelings. We've already spoken about that in the myths and facts, because it actually helps them and makes them know that you care and then you are real with them and not shying away or running away from what is actually happening to them. And if they are in danger, don't leave them alone. Make sure that there's a family member or there's someone around them all the time. Don't leave them alone, because they might try to die by suicide or attempt suicide when they are alone with their thoughts. So keep them occupied. Know that secrets can kill. So
now I can hear.
They feel that you think that when you keep their secrets, you are doing them a favor. No, you should rather let it be known, let the right authorities or the right people know about it, so that they can help or come out to help them. Encourage them to see a mental health professional. I've already spoken about that. So how do you help someone who is suicidal? First, you ask about whether they are having suicidal thoughts, and whether they are having issues that is leading them to think about dying by suicide. Ask them. When you ask them, they know that, as I said, you care, you are real with them, and you're not hiding away from them, or because there's stigma as well. So you're not running away from the issues. You are dealing with the issues head on. So you ask them. Then you'll be there for them. So you can be there for them in person or on the phone. You can call them and find out how they are doing, or you can be there physically with them, engaging with them in their home, their activities and all that. Being there for them, try not to make promises or assurances that are not going to happen. So if you're saying you're going to call in 5 minutes time and you're not going to call in 5 minutes time, don't tell them you're going to call in 5 minutes time, because if that happens and you realize that you failed them, then you feel that everyone has failed them, the system has failed them, everything is over, and it can precipitate them or lead them to try to die by suicide or attempt suicide. Try to keep them safe. So you could ask them whether they've tried attempting suicide before, and that will help you know what to do, how to help keep them safe, and know that, well, it's something that can happen again. And then you need to find out what they're going to do, their intention. Do they have a specific detailed plan of how they're going to die? What is the timing of their plan? You need to know that. What sort of access do they have to their planned method? So if they have access to all these things, then it means that it's going to happen it's really going to happen. So you need to act quickly and intervene. Help them connect with other people. If there are support groups or other people who can help, you could help them connect with these bodies so that they receive help. And then follow up. After doing all these things, taking them to maybe a mental health professional, you also have to follow up on them, check up on them. How are they doing over time? and don't leave them alone. So for children or adolescents, for parents, you need to be concerned about their struggles with mental health if it lasts for weeks. Listen to your child, even when your child is not asking. Watch out for major changes in your child's sleep pattern, appetite, and social activities. If they're withdrawing from people, that could be a sign, because they've realized that I think 9 out of 10 children died by anxiety. So be looking out for their mental health, well-being, and then also their sleep patterns. Respond by saying, it sounds like you are in a tremendous pain and I can't, and you can't see a way out. So when they say that, when they voice out their thoughts that they want to attempt suicide, don't say that, how can this happen? It can't be possible. There's so much going for you. Why do you want to do that? You know, you should try and put yourself in their shoes and see it from their perspective. Okay, so you could say that it sounds like you're in tremendous pain and can't see a way out, or maybe you are wondering how life got this complicated and difficult. And then, or right now, you are not sure of the answers to the problems you are facing. So these are empathetic ways of speaking to your child, for the child to start opening up and talking about whatever he or she is facing. Make the home safe. So take away anything that they can, so any lethal weapons, anything that they can use to harm themselves or try to die by suicide, any insecticide, any prescription drugs, any
Recording in
poison,
progress.
anything like that should be taken away kept away from them. Seek professional help right away and encourage them to see family and friends. So there's a saying that goes like, suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. So usually the problems that they face are temporary. They will pass. But because they can't see it that way, they think suicide is the way out. And usually it's a permanent solution. It ends it, and that is it. Nothing can be done about it. So we should watch out. So what can you do to help yourself if you are having suicidal thoughts? Get safe, make your home safe. So try to take away anything that you can use to harm yourself. Tell someone how you're feeling. Let someone know that this is what you are feeling, so you feel less alone. Try to get through the next 5 minutes. Don't do anything, just try and get through the next 5 minutes and reward yourself after that. So each time you get through the next 5 minutes, you reward yourself. The next 5 minutes, you reward yourself with something, okay? And then after you've done that for an hour, you make a plan for the next few hours. What are you going to do? Okay, so you can write down, if you have difficulties finding out and knowing what to do, you can write something down, what you might do to help you keep in control. And then you could also distract yourself, immerse yourself in a creative or practical activity. You could also watch videos, go to websites and apps, hear stories from others. And there's an app called Tone Matrix. It's for music lovers, so it can help you create music and all that. So that can help. You can engage yourself in games and puzzles, and that helps with problem solving. So these are ways you can distract yourself so that you don't try to end your life. And then you could also challenge your thoughts. Make a deal with yourself not to act today. Okay? Find reasons to live. Write out what you are looking forward to doing in the next maybe you're looking forward to getting maybe a new hairdo or something, or anything that, or a new car or something, anything that you're looking forward to doing. Make plans to do something you enjoy doing either the next day or the near future. Then you think about the people you love, because it's important to know that these people are going to miss you when you go away. Okay, so you think about the people you love and whom the people you are going to leave behind. That could help you stop you from trying to end your life. And then be nice to yourself. Do something nice to yourself. Be kind to yourself. Imagine you're talking to someone. How are you going to be nice to that person? How are you going to talk to that person who is going through these feelings? So do the same thing to yourself. And then tell yourself you can get through this. You could describe your thoughts in journals to try to clear your mind and make sense of what you're experiencing, and try to avoid drugs and alcohol, because these substances can push you over the edge. These are temporary helplines and national helplines for suicide. People who want to die by suicide, so you can reach out to these helplines when you are in need. Then there's when you die by suicide, usually there are people who are left behind, people who survived the suicide act. Okay, so we know that about 6 people are intimately traumatized when someone dies by suicide. Those immediately affected are immediate family members or nuclear family members, extended family members or relatives, neighbors, friends, fellow students or pupils, and co-workers. And then one thing that you should know is that suicide survivors go through some form of bereavement. They go through grief, okay? So they move from bewilderment. Why did this happen? How did I not see it happening? So these are some of the things you should think about when you want to die by suicide. This is what your relatives will go through when it happens, okay? They also go through overwhelming guilt, daily haunting thoughts about what they should have done more to avoid the situation, or what they should have done less to avoid the situation. They could also feel anger against the loved one for abandoning or rejecting them or leaving them in this predicament. Yeah, so if it's a wife, she could feel sad because she's saddened with children, and then the husband is dead, and what is she going to do? So she might feel anger. And disappointment that they feel disappointment that they were not powerful enough as relatives, or they were not loved or special enough to prevent the suicide. So these are some of the feelings they go through. So how can you help someone who, a suicide survivor? You could do that by acknowledging the death. Don't be afraid to talk about it, because usually there's stigma related to these deaths. When people die as a result of a chronic illness, maybe stroke or cancer, they receive a lot of sympathy. But then when people die by suicide, and their relatives receive a lot of sympathy, sorry. But when people die by suicide, their relatives are shunned, they don't want to get close to them and all that. So acknowledging the death and extending your condolences and expressing feelings of sorrow would help the survivor of suicide. And then you could ask if and how you can help. So if you can help. First ask them whether you can help, and then how you can help them. So it all signifies that you are there, and the fact that you are there is comforting to them. And then you encourage openness and be accepting of how grief is expressed. Everyone expresses grief in different ways. Some grieve for a long period, some grieve for a short period, some wail, some shout, some scream, some are quiet, they don't talk. You know, everyone expresses grief differently. So be open to all the forms of grieving. And some can grieve for a long time, some for a short time as well. So be patient. The next thing you can do is to be patient. Don't set a time limit for the survivor's grief, and that's what I spoke about. So some grief can last for months, some about a year and more, and some can be short. And then listen to them. As I said earlier, listen to them. Don't try and fix things for them. They just want to be listened to. So as a suicide survivor, how can you help yourself? So you ground yourself, and you hold tightly to the truth that you are not responsible for the death of your relative. Don't put a limit on your grief. You can grieve for as long as you want. Plan ahead, or so you assist your family members in finding ways to mark your loved one's birthday, any anniversaries that come up, and any other milestones. You could assist them if you are ready to do that, so that you pass, when that day occurs, you're able to pass through that day smoothly. Make connections, find a support group to help with manage or cope with the grief. And then give yourself permission to cry, laugh, or seek professional help if needed. So we are almost getting to the end of the slides. So with ways of helping people who attempt suicide, there could be hospitals say they can be put in the hospital under observation to monitor them and see how they are faring, and that also prevents them from doing anything to themselves, because they are away from anything that can lead them or equip them or enable them to die by suicide. So you monitor them in the hospital. There's also psychotherapy that is rendered, cognitive therapy that is rendered to people who attempt suicide and survive it. And then there's also pharmacotherapy, for people who have maybe underlying mental health disorders, and so we'll need some medications to help with the treatment. So these are my references. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Anne, for this presentation. And thank you for all of you for staying with us to the presentation.
Thank you.
We will open the floor for any questions that participants might have. In order to make sure that everybody's questions will reach Madam Anne, and so that they can all be answered, we'll please ask that you type your questions in the chat box, so that we can collate them and then ask them to Madam Anne, so that everything can move smoothly and everyone's questions can be answered. So please, if you have your questions, now is the time to type them in the chat. If you don't want to type it to everyone, you can see that there's a section where under where you type, the section where you can select the exact person that you want to send the message to. You can send it directly to the Silent Scream account. If you want to be anonymous, if you want to type it to everyone too, please feel free to do so. Thank you. Madam Auntie, there's a comment in the chat.
Okay.
Yes, I just don't want to do it, but it always comes and I feel urged to do it, but I become disturbed and afraid about my immediate family I will leave behind.
Yeah. So you have to hold on to that thought. The fact that when you die by suicide, your family members are going to suffer as a result of that. And so hold on to that thought. And as I said, you go through the steps I showed you about distracting yourself, and when the thoughts comes into your mind, trying to do other things, you could hold on to ice block, can get ice block and hold on to it until it melts, so you can hold on to it as a way of distracting yourself. You could engage in puzzles, you could engage in creative activities, you could engage in watching videos. Funny videos could change your perspective about life and how you see things, and then talk to someone about it. Letting someone know means that it's a problem shared. Someone else knows about it, and so it might stop you from trying to do that because someone else also knows about it. So it helps, and it makes you feel like you are not alone, okay, as a result, because someone else also knows. So, and these are ways you can distract yourself and try to live one day at a time. You pass through one day, you move on to the next day, try to move on to the next day, live a day at a time, and try to seek professional help. See a clinical psychologist. The Silent Scream Foundation has, so you can contact me or pass it through the Silent Scream. You can contact me directly or pass it through the Silent Scream Foundation. Yeah. My number is 0555 312281. If it's international, it's +233 555 312281. Thank you.
Thank you. There's a question here that says, is there any link between suicide and our African cultures? How do African cultures see it, and what impact does it have on us in our African setting?
Oh, okay. So in terms of our in terms of our culture, I think there are certain traditional how do I say it? Beliefs that might push people to want to commit suicide. So they might, for instance, we have what's it called? We have festivals where you cut yourself, you do all sorts of things. You try to do daring activities, okay, showing to people and all that. Some of these things can push, like in trying to do this, you can inadvertently, commit suicide or die by suicide rather, sorry, you're not supposed to say commit suicide. So die by suicide as a result of some of these things, that cultural beliefs and cultural acts that you engage yourself in. So these are some of the ways in which you can, culture can play a role.
Okay, thank you. There's a question. Okay, the person said, regarding professional help, Ghana has a lack of professionals. How is one supposed to get help? I think the person is saying that there's not enough people trained to deal with this issue in Ghana.
Yeah, we don't have too many professionals in the system. But then I think every regional hospital has a psychologist now. So you can go to the regional hospitals and then you will get psychological services. Some psychologists are also on calls. We also have the helplines, the regional helplines that you can also tap into to get to seek help. You could also speak to some counselors as a first aid before you move on to trained counselors, not any counselor, but a professional counselor who can also help you, give you some first aid before you are moved on to see a clinical psychologist or maybe a psychiatrist if need be. Thank you.
Thank you. And please, there's a question here that says, is it possible that someone will want to die so that their loved ones are pained because they don't feel loved enough?
Usually people want to die, but then they died. I think there was a case whereby someone wanted to die, attempted suicide because the person felt that he wasn't being believed by his family members. There had been a theft in the house, and they were attributing it to him, and he felt that by trying to attempt suicide, they will finally believe that it's true that he's not the one who stole the item. So usually it's not really to die to make them suffer, but then it's a cry for help. I know of other religious or other religious bodies, or where people die because they feel they belong and it's for a particular cause or something like that. So people will suffer as a result of their death. And also, I think even one of the wars, there were people who died, suicide bombers, or they detonated themselves, the whole aircraft and everything, so that they could kill a lot of people at a go. So these are what I know, but to die to punish a family member, or I don't know about that.
Okay, there's a question that says, crying for help is not a crime in Ghana. Why is attempted suicide criminalized in Ghana? Is this legal stance not encouraging people to complete suicide and avoid the legal consequences?
Yeah, so unfortunately, that was the case for some time now. But right now in Parliament, they are trying to repeal work on that act. So the Mental Health Authority is working assiduously on it to repeal that act, and they are moving forward towards that. If you permit me, I can read out what exactly is happened in Parliament so that you would have an idea. So this was a press release by the Ghana Mental Health Authority on the day, that's last week Saturday, on the day of the World Suicide Day. Yes. And over here it says, Um, mm, okay. So when you read the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th line, definitely not. Natalie, we have made some progress in the advocacy to decriminalize suicide attempts. A private members bill sponsored by the chairman of the Legal, Constitutional, and Parliamentary Committee of Parliament and his ranking member is seeking to have the law criminalization attempted suicide repealed from our criminal code. Currently, it is with the select committee and will have to move to the floor for members to accept the repeal of the law. Okay, so all commendations to the sponsors and select. So that's where we are at in terms of helping or repealing the law with regards to criminalizing suicide attempts. So I'm done. The next question, please.
Oh, sorry, I was muted. Sorry.
Oh, don't worry. That's fine.
Yes, there was someone asking about interferences from religious groups, since many lack the experience to deal with this suicidal ideation.
Yeah, so we are educating. We are on the path of educating. We are still on the path of educating religious bodies, pastors, bringing them in, lay professionals, bringing them into the fold of mental health so that they get to understand the nuances, so that they don't engage in acts which will rather push the person to try to die by suicide or exacerbate matters. So that's what we are doing, and some are responding. And when they realize that this is a mental health problem, they refer the person to the right quarters, a mental health professional or practitioner, or bring the person to the hospital to be seen by a mental health professional. So some of the religious authorities or men are doing that, but there's more to be done. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And someone asking a question. The person said that usually when someone expresses a desire to commit suicide, there's an overemphasis on the people who will be affected by that suicide. And people try to encourage the person not to do it in order not to leave their family members or friends grieving. But the people experiencing that suicidal ideation feel like their concerns are being brushed aside and they are supposed to prioritize everyone else over their own feelings. So how do we go about talking to such people in order not to prioritize others, the feelings of others over their own feelings?
Okay, so you first have to ask the person whatever he or she is feeling. Ask the person whether the person is experiencing suicidal thoughts, and then find out what those thoughts are, how the person is. It's good to let the person know about what might happen if maybe the family members are left behind, but then it's not good to emphasize that. So what you need to do is to talk about their feelings, concentrate on them. Okay, their feelings, how they are going through it, if there's anything they need, any help they need, you provide that help. If you can't provide that help, try and get someone who can provide that help for them. Okay, and then also refer them to encourage them to go to seek a professional help, professional person to help them, mental health person to help them, so that they can come out of the thoughts that they are going through. So these are some of the things you can do. Be there for them so that they know that it's not only their relatives you are thinking about, but they themselves as an individual. You know, you are concentrating on them, and you hold them in high esteem, and you think about them, and they are important to you. So you think about them, and you be there for them, and then follow up on them and all that. So these are some of the things you can do to prevent them from prevent the overemphasis on the loss that the family members will feel when the person who dies by suicide eventually does it. Thank you.
Thank you. Someone's asking a question that says, in the situation where you are the only person that a suicidal person confides in, how do you make sure to manage your own emotions when you start to feel overwhelmed so that you don't reach your capacity and abandon the person and worsen the situation?
Okay, so as I said earlier, it's not good to keep secrets. By keeping secrets or keeping it to yourself, it doesn't augur or help the person who is having suicidal thoughts at all. It rather could because you are the only one who knows, and you could feel overwhelmed, one, and then also the person will not get the help that he or she needs because you are the only person who knows. So you need to reach out to other people, let other people know, people who are sensitive and will treat it with maturity. Let mental health professionals also know about it so that they can reach out and help the person who is having the suicidal thoughts. Okay, so in managing your feelings, talking about it with someone else, as I said, with who is mature and the tension, the mental tension that you have on yourself, or the emotional tension that you feel, because a problem shared is a problem solved or halved. So you don't bear all the burden, and you feel a bit lighter, and you're able to help the person to the end, because you feel you're not the only one responsible for the person's life or something like that. Yes, someone else is also there to support. Thank you.
Thank you. And there are about 3 separate questions now, but we're almost out of time.
Out of time.
So, yes, I think I'll just bundle it, and then maybe you can answer the ones that you can, then maybe you can reach out to the others later. So the first,
Okay, so I think maybe we could answer the rest of the question in the chat, like the platform, on the platform.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could do that.
The first one is asking that there seems to be recent trends of midlife crisis, especially in men between the ages of 35 and 50. And it's a phenomenon that is similar to menopause. So I think that's a comment. Okay, I think it's a question. And then there's another one that says, many suicides occur to women struggling with their perimenopause or menopause itself. How are they supported in Ghana? Some women are in the dark on these issues. And then the last one, I'm not sure where it has gone. Okay, the last one, the person is asking about the situation where the person has already committed, I think attempted many of them complain that the forced hospitalization is dehumanizing and they are not treated well in the mental health facilities. So what other options are there other than committing the person to the mental health facility against their will? So I think those are the three: the mental health facility, committing the people in the mental health facilities, the issue of women experiencing menopause and committing suicide, and then men between the ages of 35 to 50 having midlife crisis.
Hello.
Yeah.
Sorry, I tried raising my hand. I don't know, I'm unable to. And I have a question. I don't know if it's a good time to ask. Apologies for just.
No problem. And please, is it possible to put the question in the chat since we've run out of time, unfortunately?
Okay, that's fine. It's okay. Unfortunately, I'm driving, so maybe I can put it in later. I don't know if it's.
Can we let her just speak?
Okay, sure.
Okay, so I've been listening to the program, but I think I missed for about 10-15 minutes. So I don't know if what I'm going to ask has been touched on already, but my question is in twofold. Firstly, it's about looking at suicide from an Islamic perspective, okay? I think a lot of times as Muslims, when people are struggling or dealing with situations and then they try to talk to other people about it, usually there's the perception that it's probably because they have low iman or they have a drop in iman or something of that sort. So mental health is not something, it's a bit frowned upon, especially in our parts of the world. So I don't know. So for this program, for example, I don't know, maybe, like I said, I missed a few these things. So I don't know if there was somebody who spoke about mental health from an Islamic perspective and some of the things that we can do as Muslims when people are going through situations and they need help. You know, we need to direct them to the help they need rather than think that, it's just their iman that's low. They should just pray, do the Korean, those dispute that fact, but sometimes people genuinely need help and we need to be able to direct them to this help. So what are some of the things that we can do as Muslims? I don't know if you can just touch a bit on that. I think the second one would be when it comes to socializing our children, especially boys. You know, a lot of times we think that, there's this Akan adage that goes like, men do not cry, So when they are boys, they are not supposed to cry. They're supposed to bottle everything inside. And then you find them bottling so many things inside. And then later on, it just, it becomes psychological and they are dealing with so many things, So what are some of the ways that, we can socialize our children to let them understand that, as humans, we all go through things and you are allowed to let it out when it's necessary. So that would be my question. And so sorry for dragging you.
Okay, so I spoke about the fact that when people die by suicide, people see it as a shameful act and all that. So they think or they ignore the relatives who have survived it and all that, who have survived the loss and all that. Yeah, so yeah, people, there's definitely the idea that suicide is shameful, and that's the reason why there's a lot of stigma and people avoid talking about mentioning it. People who have attempted suicide, they ignore them or shun away from them because they think if they get close to them, they would also catch the virus or catch the disease or whatever. Yes, so they avoid all that and they don't want to be seen to be by them because they think they are of lower, mental state or something like that. So what we can do is what you are doing right now, talking about it. Letting people know that no, this is what actually happens to the person who is experiencing suicidal thoughts, and these are the reasons that pushes people to go through, try to attempt suicide or die by suicide. And it's not just out of a whim or something of that sort, or because they want attention or something of that sort, but they're actually going through a lot and they need help. And it's actually a cry for help rather than a lowering of their spiritual life or their faith or whatever, but they're actually going through real life problems that is causing all that. So the more we talk about it, the more people get used to it and get used to the idea, and the more they're educated and the more they become open-minded when it comes to dealing with issues or seeing or seeing people who have attempted suicide and all that. So it's all about education, sensitization, and talking about not shying away from talking about it and all that. Yeah, so that's how we can help. And then socializing children, yes. So we as women, we are mostly with the children. So we should start with the socialization. We should let them know that when they are faced with a lot of problems and they want to cry, it's okay to cry. We are the ones to tell them, because we are the ones who shape the men, who shape the men anyways. So we should tell them that it's okay to cry. And then also, if they can't express their emotions, encourage them to talk about it. I have I know of someone whose child has difficulty talking about the emotions. Like, he will come to you crying, and then so the mother will say, "What is it? What happened?" So she tries to get him to talk about what is happening, the reason why he's crying, and not just be crying and not saying anything. So encouraging them to talk about their feelings would help them be able to talk about their feelings with other people or professionals when they go through challenges or crisis, and not result in trying to end their life or die by suicide as a result of that. So it starts from us women. We could change the whole situation of the narrative. Thank you.
Madam Ann, please,
Yes,
the previous 3 questions, should we send them to you later? And so we make the answers available on the platform? Or?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Okay, sure. Okay. Someone is saying that we need to make these issues more visible so that people are educated. And then professionals too should be readily available. So I think that's
Those are comments.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. Thank you very much for the questions, for the comments, for the suggestions. That will be the end of today's session because we've gone a little over time and want to be respectful of everyone's time. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you look through the chat, you see that we've put some links for the Silent Scream website, our social media handles, our YouTube page. You can find more information there. You can reach out to us in case you need access to a mental health professional or just a listening ear. You can use all of those channels to reach out to us. You can also watch our previous talks on the YouTube channel. This video will also be posted on the YouTube. In case you missed anything, you can revisit it. You can also send it to someone who needs the information. So thank you all once again for joining us. And please make sure you share this with anyone who might need it so that the next session, more people can join, more people can have access to this information. And so we can all help to destigmatize mental health issues in Ghana. Thank you once again for joining us and have a wonderful rest of your day. We'll let you know when the next event is coming up and the information you need to join. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Ann. Thank you, everyone.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for having us.